Everybody, welcome back. My name is Tony, and you're watching Yesteryear. And today, we're going to be covering the horror movies that we loved of 1935. So check out the horror movies that we loved of 1935. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get started. Next we have is The Black Room. This was released in 1935. Also a horror film. Ignoring an ancient prophecy, evil brother Gregor seeks to maintain his feudal power on his Tyrolean estate by murdering and impersonating his benevolent younger twin. The Black Room. Next up we have is The Bride of Frankenstein, true classic of all time. Mary Shelley reveals the main characters of her novel survived Dr. Frankenstein, goaded by an even madder scientist, builds his monster a mate. Drama, horror, and sci-fi, The Bride of Frankenstein, one of the best films of all time. Next up we have is Phantom Ship, drama, horror, and mystery. During a horrific storm at sea, the crew realizes that there is a murderer among them who is killing them off one by one. Phantom Ship. This movie is a scorcher, a lot of jump scares. Next up we have is The Raven. Also released in 1935, this is a crime and horror film. Dr. Bolin is a brilliant but unstable surgeon with a morbid obsession for instruments of torture. Then he soon kills people one by one. The Raven. If you like being scared, check out The Raven. Next up we have is Werewolf of London. Drama, fantasy, and horror. After botanist Wilfred travels to Tibet in search of a rare flower, the Marfisa, he returns to a London haunted by murders that can only be the work of bloodthirsty werewolves. Werewolf of London. Next up we have is Charlie Chan in Egypt. Crime, drama, mystery, and horror. While investigating the theft of antiquities from ancient tomb excavation, Charlie discovers the body of the expedition's leader concealed inside the mummy's wrappings. Charlie Chan in Egypt. Next up we have is Condemned to Live, drama, horror, and mystery. After a series of unsolved murders, a man finds out that his mother was bitten by a vampire bat during her pregnancy. And he believes that he may be the vampire committing the murders. Next up we have is Mad Love, horror, romance, and sci-fi. In Paris, a demented surgeon's obsession with a British actress leads him to secretly replace her concert pianist husband's mangled hands with those of a guillotine's murdered hands. So he's putting a dead person's hands into another person's hands. Next up we have is Mark of the Vampire, horror and mystery. When a nobleman is murdered, a professor of the occult blames vampires, but not all is what it seems. Mark of the Vampires, another vampire movie, but this is 1935. Next up we have is Mystery of Edwin Drood, crime, drama, and horror. An opium-addicted choir master develops an obsession for a beautiful young girl and will not stop short of murder in order to have her. Mystery of Edwin Drood. This is the classic horror film of 1935. Next up we have is The Dead Speak. The Dead Speak is a wonderful film where, in essence, dead people, zombies, they come out of the grave and they speak. This is drama, horror, and mystery. The Dead Speak. Next up we have is The Crime of Dr. Gespi. Crime, horror, and mystery. A crazed scientist invents a serum that induces a catatonic state in whoever it is injected into. He uses the serum to paralyze his enemies so that he can bury them alive. The Crime of Dr. Gespi. And lastly, for 1935, The Ghost Goes West. Comedy, fantasy, and horror. A haunted Scottish castle is dismantled and transported to Florida, bringing the family ghost along with it. The Ghost Goes West. This is a comedy, fantasy, and horror film of its time. Those were the horror movies that we loved of 1935. Let me know if there's any horror movies that I may have left out. But what do you think about the horror films of 1935? Have you seen any of them? Do you remember any of them? I'd like to know. Leave your comments below. I'm Tony. You're watching Yesteryear today. Those are the horror films that we loved of 1935. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.